Matthew Braunginn, I'm with Young, Gifted, and Black.
YGB. YGB.
So we're here today to hear from the family about their feelings on the current state of the investigation into the death and murder of Tony Robinson. Jerome Flowers will be the spokesperson for the family today. After a statement, we will allow for 1 to 3 questions. All right?
What's his name?
Tony Robinson!
What's his name?
Tony Robinson!
Who are we here for?
Tony Robinson!
What's his name?
Tony Robinson!
All right. According to the website of the district attorney, after an incident such as the police killing of Tony Robinson Jr., the goals of the DA are to provide prompt and fair justice while also providing critical services to the family. Further, the DA office believes that peace and justice are not possible without progressive and fair law enforcement. The family of Tony Robinson Jr. wonders what about this process is progressive, fair, and also wonders what critical services have been provided to them.
Yes.
The family calls on the DA, Ishmael Ozen, to practice what his office preaches, to do what his office says it will do, and that would lead to criminal charges, to an indictment of Officer Matt Kinney for the killing of Tony Robinson Jr.
Right on.
Yes.
While the police department and those affiliated with the investigation are trying to frame this as fair and independent, this is not a fair process. This is not a just process. What we know about how this case has been handled so far is that it is unjust. We know that Madison Police Department got to choose who they wanted to see oversee the investigation. We know that the Division of Criminal Investigation has worked in partnership with MPD on every step of the investigation. We know that the Division of Criminal Investigation is staffed with retired law enforcement officers. Although the law allows all of this, it is not an independent investigation by any ethical or moral standards. This process is biased. What we do know is that Tony was unarmed and was shot at least 7 times in the chest and head by Officer Kinney.
Yes.
This was neither reasonable nor necessary. We say to the DA, Ishmael Ozen, if you want to be just and fair, you have to indict.
Yes.
Additionally, the Madison Police Department is neither progressive nor fair. They use the same standards that all police around the country use to justify lethal force, which is one that asks whether the force was reasonable and necessary. Again, Tony's murder was neither reasonable nor necessary. That is an unjust standard, and we need a progressive standard for the use of lethal force. Secondly, there is nothing progressive nor fair about the misleading documents MPD released last Friday.
Speak on it.
Thank you.
Most of the reports about police incidents were not about Tony Robinson Jr. Again, I repeat, most of the police incident reports were not about Tony Robinson Jr. Furthermore, the information released by MPD had nothing to do with the 18 seconds that passed between when Officer Kinney approached the apartment where Tony was and when he shot him at least 7 times in the chest and head. The facts we know for certain are that Tony was unarmed and was shot multiple times and killed by an officer who has a long history of using force against Madison residents. And we also know Tony was not the first person Kinney has killed. Chief Cobalt has repeatedly said that Madison Police Department is living up to the national standards of policing. But national standards of policing have repeatedly found that it is both necessary and reasonable for police to kill unarmed black people. MPD continues to say that Madison is different, that the Madison model is what sets us apart and will ensure that Madison is not like Ferguson. But as long as MPD does not operate by truly progressive standards, we will not have justice. And Madison will be like Ferguson. In closing, I'll leave you with this. Unity and peace will never exist in a community that allows police officers to murder with impunity. In the words of the great Martin Luther King Jr., the time is always right to do what is right.
Yes.
District Attorney Ishmael Ozen, do the right thing for our community and indict.
What's his name?
Tony Robinson.
What's his name?
Tony Robinson!
What's his name?
Tony Robinson!
All right. Any questions?
Would it be accurate to say that the family does not have faith in the investigation at this point?
The family has not met with the DA currently.
Okay.
So what we want is for him to wait to make his decision before he's able to meet with us about the new facts in the private autopsy.
Rather than the Department of Justice, who would you have wanted involved in the investigation?
Can you say that again?
Rather than the Department of Justice, who would you have wanted to handle the investigation?
We're calling for the UN and United Nations Human Rights Council and the Organization of American State Inter-American Commission on Human Rights to launch an independent, truly independent investigation into the murder of 19-year-old Tony Robinson by Officer Matt Kinney. And secondly, on the gross racial disparities in employment, education, arrest rates, and wealth in Dane County for being the worst offender in the nation when it comes to Black Americans. So really that is going to be a full independent investigation into the murder and into the human rights violations which we see are connected to the two.
Could you explain the differences between the private autopsy results and the autopsy results that were released earlier?
We will not, at this time, comment on that.
Should a special prosecutor be brought in?
Right now, we don't have faith in the Madison Police Department's ability to justly handle this case and investigation, nor do we have faith in the United States government's ability to justly handle this investigation. History has taught us that in past cases when an unarmed person of color, namely Black folks, are murdered at the hands of police, the investigation is not only handled by members of that police force, meaning that the police are investigating themselves for their own wrongdoings, but also when an independent, quote unquote, independent investigation is warranted, that is also compromised by having retired police officers that also served on the force. So that's why we're going to the United Nations to request a truly independent and impartial investigation and demand justice.
Gentlemen, did Madison Police overstep its bounds with this investigation? Did they interfere or collaborate with the Department of Criminal Investigation in the state? Can you explain?
We don't see a difference between the two. It's all one system. They all work together. There is no difference between an outside, a special prosecutor, the DCI, and the Madison Police Department. They're all part of the law enforcement and justice system, which continuously collaborates together to protect their own power and their own system, which is to uphold an order that is not just or humane. And that will be all the questions that we'll be taking. Right.
What's his name?
Tony Robinson.
What's his name?
Tony Robinson.
Who did they kill?
Tony Robinson.
Who did they murder?
Tony Robinson.
What's his name?
Tony Robinson.
What's his name?
Tony Robinson.
In closing, we would like to remind people that one, you can look and sign up for a petition to the Human Rights Council at our website, YGBcoalition.org or im.colorofchange.org. We'll also remind people that the day of the decision, indictment or non-indictment, we are calling for people to meet at Willie Street and Few in front of the house Tony Robinson was murdered. No matter the outcome, justice is more than just an indictment. It is addressing the massive institutional racism that led to his death.
Yes.
The day of the indictment, immediately after the non-indictment. With indictment or not, we'll be meeting immediately after. So as soon as that decision comes down, we'll be meeting where Tony Robinson was murdered.
And will it be a peaceful meeting?
We are looking for a positive outcome.
We are looking for law enforcement to be peaceful with us.
Yes, law enforcement has not been peaceful with us.
What about vice versa, though? Does it depend on the outcome?
Well, we're not planning for violence. I don't know where this is coming from, where media keeps asking us for violence. We have not perpetrated any violence in our rallies, in our protests. The police have instituted violence upon us. Why are we being asked if we are going to be violent or not when the state continually is violent?